Welcome to the Murali End. My name is Mark Machado. I'm joined by my cousin Dominic Machado. I'm also joined by a good friend of the show, former Sri Lanka analyst Prad Navaratnam. Prad, I think you're joining us from Colombo today, right?
Yes, I am. I'm in Colombo at the moment.
Wicked. We are going to discuss what Sri Lanka should be and shouldn't be doing on the road to the World Cup. There's a T20 World Cup. It's at home. It's about 7 months away. We just saw us lose a series in quite spectacular fashion to Bangladesh. It seems to me like we've got all the gear. We're just seeing them with laptops on the side, but maybe no idea. We're going to get into that. If you're watching, if you're listening, if you're watching, remember that you could listen back to this as well. We put it out as a podcast, as an audio about an hour or so after the show. And if you are watching live, then you can leave us your comments on the side and some questions, and we'll get to them during the show. Prad, we'll start to you because it's been a while since you were last on. What was your takeaway from that Bangladesh T20 disaster?
I think I've tweeted about this plenty in the recent weeks about the Bangladesh series, and I think, look, all in all, I think we're just lacking game management completely. I feel as though we have no plan going into the games. I think we're just banking on one or two great performances and just rolling off that. From bowling plans to batting strategy to everything, I just think we're just lacking game management. Full stop.
So if you came on Murali End, I think probably about 18 months ago for the first time.
Yep.
We talked about what your role is. You left the side after 2 World Cups ago now, the World Cup in Australia. When you look at where we are now from where you left, where do you feel like Sri Lanka have kind of moved on with their kind of T20 strategy and also the way that they use data?
Look, it's hard for me to comment whether they've moved forward with the way they use data or not, because I'm not involved in any capacity with the team. But from what I see in the games, I feel that they haven't. I feel they've probably gone backwards. I'd really like to know. We talk about every time the team loses, we talk about players failing. We spoken a lot about Avishka Fernando. We spoke a lot about Chandima. We spoke a lot about Binura Fernando. We hear about the players, but we've never heard about people asking, the management. Well, what was your game plan? What was your strategy? Was there a matchup? What was the bowling plans? So I feel as though we've gone away from that. I feel as though they don't believe in matchups anymore. They don't believe in having a strategy. And in T20, it's all about it's a game of chess. It's all about data. It's all about being a step ahead because you only have 120 balls. There is no time for recovery.
Go on, Dom. I know you've got a few things to.
Yeah. I think one of the changes that has been made, as we remember when we came back from the 2023 World Cup, there was that 1 hour long press conference with Mahela kind of answering questions, and they had Kusal and Charith, who were the newly appointed captains. And I remember Kusal and Charith specifically asking for batting wickets so that they could practice playing the type of cricket they needed to play to win. And now we've seen the inverse of that, the turn towards spinning wickets. And Mark, could you cue the first table we got here? I don't know if you guys can see this table, but this shows our record against spin over the last year. And as you can see, we are second to last in strike rate, behind only Afghanistan, who's only played 3 matches. So of teams that have the top 10 teams that have actually played, we strike worst against spin. We've only hit 22 sixes in that time. And our average, which is 21, is, I think, 4th from the bottom. So what do you make of this decision to say, okay, let's turn to spinning wickets? That may suit some of our bowlers, when we have really struggled playing spin.
Yeah, look, I don't I don't agree with it. I mean, whenever we were in the team, I think if you look at the data back then for those 2 years that I was with the team, we didn't have wickets that spun as much. However, so I don't agree. I'll tell you why. The main reason I don't agree with it is if you play T20 cricket anywhere else in the world, obviously except Bangladesh, as we've just recently seen yesterday, they're flat and true wickets, right? T20 wickets are made for entertainment, and we need to get used to that because that is one of those wickets we're going to get when we go to any ICC event, any T20 ICC event. And I think our biggest weakness, as we know, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Our biggest strength is our bowling, right? So we know our bowlers can actually perform on those true wickets. They've taken wickets before, whether it's in UAE, whether it's wherever in the world, they've gone there and they've shown they can. So our strength is that. So we don't need to compensate for our weakness. Instead, we should be backing our strength and try and give our batters those true wickets to give them the confidence to go out there and score runs and just see what happens, rather than trying to go, oh no, we'll fox the opposition by playing spinning wickets. I don't believe this is the 90s anymore, and I don't think we should be going down that road. We've got the bowlers to tackle their batters, and rather than relying on the pitch to tackle their batters, just come up with plans. Just get your preparation right, get the bowlers to deliver on that preparation, and get them out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is it makes the toss a much more important factor, right? When wickets are spinning, the toss matters so much. And sure, as an analyst, you're screaming to yourself, that takes everything out of the picture. You want the match to be as close to manageable and not put something completely random.
Correct. I mean, and to be honest, what I don't understand is we saw in the last T20 against Bangladesh, we weren't looking at the stats even for the toss. Team batting second had won 9 out of the last 10. Soon as the toss happened, that was the first thing I think I'd message my dad about and saying it was, what are we doing? We're chasing. We're just to bat first on a pitch that favors chasing. And I think, if I'm wrong, but someone mentioned to me that at the press conference when Charith was asked that question, he said, "Oh, we need to look into that in the future." So that tells me that they're not looking at data at all. They've just chosen to completely ignore data. As basic as what do we do when we win the toss?
Prad, when you were with the side, and some people will be slightly disappointed about the performance in Australia that World Cup, but you were there for the Asia Cup a few weeks before when we won it. It's something like the toss. When would that start to get discussed about what you want to do if you win it? Basically,
we discuss it just so, especially in a multi-team tournament like the Asia Cup or World Cup, it's usually discussed before that particular game. So usually a day or two before the game, especially when the coach and the selector who's on tour is thinking about combinations and team. We start where my feedback comes in is I will go in and I will say what I see, and I will usually call it out regardless of what the coach, captain, or selector is thinking, saying, "Hey, this is what the data is showing," and then I'll leave it up to them. That discussion usually then will carry on, depending if it's a 50-50 decision, all the way through till game day, where we get to the ground. Coach and captain will go out onto the pitch. They'll look at the pitch as well, have a look. Then if it's still a 50-50, when we were with the team, if it was a 50-50 call, we'd always back the data and we'd go with the decision where the data was showing.
Yeah, because, listening to Charith's comments afterwards, the idea that it's something that they're not looking at is actually, quite frightening. I think that we won that Asia Cup going into that World Cup. It was a young side. This side now should be more mature, or the players are more mature. You look at their individual performances, so you kind of got to say to yourself, what is it that we're doing that we are kind of coming into these matches undercooked? And it's the annoying thing is I don't want to talk, Dan talk what your the vital role you were doing to the team for the team, Prad, but it seems to me like doing the data is kind of the easy part, right? Something like the toss is something that you just go, right, who's the team what's the team that's most likely to win on this pitch? Oh, the team that's chasing, right? So why do you just not look at that, right? And also, you don't need to have this brain center to do that. You can probably manipulate that data off Cricket Info.
You're 100% right. But the thing is, it's not as simple as that as well, right? I mean, I know they're not looking at that data, which is as basic as that you can get off Cricket Info, which anyone can grab that off Cricket Info nowadays. But we would, to give you an idea, back when I was in the team, for a single series tour, so like a series against Bangladesh, it would take us 2 weeks to gather and put together what we call player profiles. That's the team that's with me and 2 other analysts. It would take us 2 weeks as we're looking at reels and reels of video and data to put that together. Following which, it then takes me at least another 2 full days. I'm talking about 16 to 20 hours worth of time of me analyzing that data and then narrowing it all the way down into this one presentation that I need to present to the team and the coaches for an hour. So it goes into a significant amount of preparation. I just feel we're skipping that entire piece and we're just going, oh, yeah, we'll turn up and let's just see what happens.
They got a comment in from Udith Irosh, who does an incredible show called Let's Talk Cricket. He said they see the data but go instinctively. So this is something we've talked about before, Prad, about what exactly is the role for data analysts when you're in situ within the team, and how much can you actually influence players and how they play?
Yep, it's not about influencing the players. It's just about giving them an idea of what is our plan based on data for the ground, for the opposition, whether we're batting and bowling, right? When it comes to bowling, it's about working out, firstly, matchups, because that helps decide combination. Do you want a left-arm spinner? Do you want a left-arm fast bowler? Who's going to bowl the depth? Who's going to bowl the first power play? How are you going to structure your overs? So you just give that information as a guide, and then when they're on the field, it's up to them to decide. With batting, when I was with the team, we had a very, very simple game plan. Our game plan was 8 runs and over, right? 8 runs and over is what you're aiming for. Anytime there is an over under 6 runs, and if we're batting, we consider that a loss, right? If it's under 6 runs, it's a loss for us. And vice versa when we're bowling. So we're looking for overs under 6 when we're bowling, right? Any overs 10 and over, it's a win for us, right? But the middle spot is that 8 runs and over, because 8 runs and over gets you to 160. And as we know, that 160 plus on most wickets, I mean, depending on the smaller grounds, probably not, but on most wickets at 160, 170, 180, you're probably at least backing our bowling lineup to win you a game on that.
Yeah. Speaking of this, so Prad has kind of talked about the importance of the analyst and the amount of work that has been done. And a friend of our show, Cricket on Your Screen from Twitter, asks, Prad, what do you think of Jahan acting as an analyst of the Sri Lankan team with a physical science degree?
Look, I mean, Jahan obviously comes with a significant amount of cricket experience. He's played a lot of international cricket. I think was in the first squad that went for the T20 World Cup. You got to give him that due respect, I think. However, in any sport, I believe the role of the analyst cannot be fulfilled, I believe, by a former player, because they've played the sport. Like, you look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, you look at all these major leagues. I could be wrong here. There's multiple number of teams, but I've never heard of a former player taking an analyst role within those massive franchises that win multiple series, right? Because the analyst role is based on data first and your experience second. So ideally, you need someone who understands, who knows how to manipulate data, knows how to work with data, knows how to work with numbers, and subsequently can then understand cricket to translate those numbers to a language that the coach, the selector, captain, and players can understand.
Prad, I just want to get to this question first, because I don't want people thinking that there's something like ulterior motives here. Mate has asked, why did SLC sack Prad after the Asia Cup win? We suffered major losses, including to India and Namibia. Was there a clear reason, and what's the long-term plan to rebuild and strengthen the team?
There's a couple of things with that. I mean, without going into too much detail, so it wasn't that I was actually sacked. They actually did offer me an extension. However, it wasn't engineered. The extension wasn't ideally engineered in the right way. They required a lot more commitment, and I have a young family, and they weren't willing to increase my salary at all, a single bit, even though I was at least part of a success. And so I had to make the right decision for my family at the time to step back from the role, and that was the reason why I stepped back.
Prad, we are currently in a weird situation where we keep hearing rumours that the India team is coming for a white ball series in August.
Yep.
We don't know if the Asia Cup is happening or not happening. We are due to go to Zimbabwe at the end of August. I keep hearing that Ireland are coming, and then all we know for sure is that
Right.
England are coming definitely at the end of January. There is a
Yep.
vision where we play kind of somewhere between 15 to 20 T20 games between now and the start of the World Cup. There is also a situation there where we play, I think, 5 against England and 3 against Zimbabwe. You said it takes 2 weeks to prepare for a team. If you were in the brain center right now, how would you go about trying to prepare for this and plot our route to World Cup domination?
Look, if I was honest, I think it's too short a period to kind of throw in a grenade, blow it all up, and build it from scratch. Let's be real, we've had 2 years from our last World Cup to this one. We had a full 2 years. The same management has had a full 2 years with as little disruption as possible, right? And so with those 2 years, I feel what would I do now is I think a lot of the players that are within our current talent pool, or what you want to call it, the pool of 30 players, you need to back them. We have 7 months. If you're going to bring in a young player, I know we've got some great talent. Vishen Halambage is great. We've got some great talent coming through. But to throw them in now, just before a big World Cup, which is going to be, Mitchell Stark's last World Cup, Jasprit Bumrah's last World Cup, these guys are going to be raring to go. It's not playing Sri Lankan domestic cricket. You're not playing LPL. You're not playing for CCC or SSC anymore. This is some serious stuff on true wickets, right? So I would back the existing talent pool of 30. Mm-hmm. These guys have proven that they can win games. We've beaten teams on true wickets, not in Sri Lanka. I'm not talking about playing them at Premadas where the ball is turning square. I'm talking about playing them in Dubai. I'm talking about playing them in Sharjah and Abu Dhabi where it's true wickets, and we've brought these teams down. Right, so these exact same players, and they've got a lot more experience now. So I would back these guys to go in there, and I think the questions need to be asked around our game management and our strategy, and given to these guys and say, okay, here's our plan, here's a strategy, let's go forward from here.
So I think this is a good moment to turn towards team combination, which I think you've been fairly vocal on. So, putting on your analyst hat and let's just limit this to T20s for now. One of the big questions is, what does the combo look like, 6-5 or 7-4? And I think we're in a position where, because our bowlers, with the exception of Wanindu, don't really bat, this is a really important thing for us to consider. And so what do you see on that, Prad?
I'm strongly 6-5. I've always been it. I've been vocal about it on Twitter. 100% 6-5. I hear what you're saying, Dom. With our bowlers, besides one in the are not too strong with the bat. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of weakening our strength just to compensate for our weakness. If that's our strength, we need to back them to bowl them out.
Okay.
Right. And then we need to help our batters come up with a plan and come up with a structure on how do we tackle to get to 160, 170, 180.
So there are 5 bowlers. I think Wani, if he's healthy, is absolutely number 1 on the team sheet.
Yep, 100%.
What do you imagine? Who do you see as the other 4? What are the options you're imagining as the other 4?
Look, I think it's not as straightforward as here's 5 out-and-out bowlers. I think it's going to come down to, once again, we got to do our preparation, but it's going to come down to ground opposition who we're playing. But you think Wani and Theekshana would be 2 lock-ins, right? And now I would ideally, on typical ICC wickets, definitely have 2 fast bowlers. Now, who those 2 are depends on, once again, opposition, form, injury, so many things, right? So you go 2 fast bowlers. Now, that last spot, that last 5th bowler, this is where it gives you gives the team an opportunity to really play around on that combination. So if we're playing, for example, a team like Bangladesh, right, on a true wicket, we've seen their weakness against Nuwan Tushara and slinging and skidding bowling. I'd be playing Tushara and Patharuna,
Yep.
Hit them up front with Tushara, hit them at the back then with Patarana. If we're playing a team like I don't know, but a team that's predominantly right-handed in that top six, I would be playing Willalage.
Mm-hmm.
Have Willalage with the left arm and one in the both spinning it away from them.
Yep.
Or if we're playing a particular team that has a really out and out amazing batsman that we need to try and target, and he's got to match up against a particular type of bowling, well, play that bowler in there. But use that fifth option for that flexibility rather than using that fifth option for your hedge bet of all-rounded that doesn't quite bat, doesn't quite bowl, gives you 1 or 2 overs and faces 5 balls.
And go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say the frustrating thing as a Sri Lanka fan from listening to what you're talking about, Prad, and the comments coming in, is that we have never been in this kind of situation with the amount of depth that we have with our squad, right? We've had some absolutely incredible T20 players and white ball players of cricket, but we've only ever had, let's say, kind of 13 or 14 players who you thought were at that level. It feels to me now, especially with our bowling, like we've got every single thing going on, right? And every single variation, every single, any type of player that you want. And the idea that they're not using matchups or basically ending up, I'd like to get your take on this. It looks to me like they're manipulating the data to such a point where they're just saying, play our most generic players because they're the ones with our most average player is the person who's most likely to get a wicket in any given circumstance if you stop looking at the matchups, right? And do you think that was how we ended up with that 11 that we got against Bangladesh?
Great question.
Look, it's hard to say definitively, whether that is true, but it seems like that. Very much so seems like it. I didn't understand some of the selections. I didn't. Let's just look at the last T20 against Bangladesh. We put on only 138. It's a low score, right? Let's be real. It was never going late. That game was not going to the 20th over in the Bangladesh innings. Why weren't we attacking with our bowling? The number of singles inside that inner circle in the first 6 overs was incredible. We weren't attacking enough, and I think we weren't attacking enough because we didn't have a plan. Back when we were the team, we planned lines and lengths for each batter and which bowler was going to go line and length. We then, depending on that line and length, we had a particular field because we would say, okay, we would try and predict what was the batsman's counter strategy to that line and length. So if they're going to just knock it about, where are they going to knock it about, and where do we want to put the pressure on? So it's about doing that preparation and kind of choking them. And I felt we didn't do that at all. So there was definitely no matchups, and we saw that because we had Charit come on for 1 over, get put away for 14 runs, and never came back on again. So it was quite clear we had no plan.
Yeah, well, and right, that idea of we're just trying to get an over in here in a game where if it goes to 16 overs, it's done, right? That at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so this is what's surprising is, and I completely 100% agree with Mark, we have so much bowling talent. We have such diverse bowling talent that we really can change the squad to match what the weakness of the other squad is. And we're not even factoring the fact that Dawson, Charith, and Kamindu can also offer overs. So we have so much flexibility. Why?
Yep.
It defies me why we aren't making more use of the actual skill we have to do that. And I'm glad to hear you say that. I want to press you on one thing, the Pacers, right?
Yep.
We said Deekshana and Money definitely play.
Yeah.
Are there Pacers that you would say we need to absolutely have in the game no matter what?
Oh, it's really hard to pin it on 1 or 2 paces because they kind of vary in form. We've seen in one game a single pace having a great game, the next game dropping off. I think this is where we need to be smart with our selection. So, perfect example, if we know we're playing a team that's got a weakness against that left arm quick angle, you'd go with like a Dilshan Madhushankar, for example, right? So it's really about doing a prep. And I understand there's only 15 players in the squad, so you can't pick too many players. But that's why when you're constructing the squad, you need to be a step in front and doing a prep for your group and going, okay, this is where we think we need to go. It's going to come down to 1 or 2 spots at the end of the day. Yeah. So those 1 or 2 spots, it's about picking your strength there,
Yeah.
or what you're missing. So if you've got all right-hand paces, maybe let's throw in a left-armer just in case we need it.
And that's kind of why I was pressing you, because I think one of the unique things about our bowlers is that they bowl in different phases of the game.
Correct.
And so then people are worried, okay, if we play put the runner, we're going to end up not using him. But I think that you need to balance it by actually, as Pest Gamer says, we need to play a new ball seamer in T20 like Dilshan Madhushanka or Dushi in the side with Juan and Eshan. And I think, but it defies me as to why we're not thinking that way, because maybe I'm thinking it's obvious. It sounds like we're saying it's obvious, but they're missing out on this.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think once again, so it really depends. So if I was looking at the squad and the paces, like when it's not a squad of 15, but the potential players in the squad, all these guys are in there. So like Dushi, even Eshan Malinga plays. He has a role in the death. Matish Patrana has a role in the death. Up front, like Pez Gamer said, you've got Nuwan Tushari, you've got Dushi. What you don't realize as well, a bowler who bowls really well up front and at the death is actually Mahesh Theekshana. If you look at his numbers, he's actually very good at the death, very good up front, can control that new ball. It was something he was working on when I was with the team, and he was executing on really well as well. And that allows you to then bowl a pacey in that middle overs as well if you need to get through. See, I always believe in one thing, right? Regardless of the team, whichever team, any global team, I'm talking India, Australia, doesn't matter. Even if you play 5 bowlers, there's always going to be one bowler that has one bad day.
Yeah.
Right? It's a guarantee. It's an almost 95% guarantee. So if we choose to play 4 bowlers and 2 all-rounders, you're really not giving yourself much room to move, because as soon as one of those 4 have a bad day, you're now relying on 3 part-time bowlers to make up, the overs. Whereas you play 5 bowlers and then you have the likes of Dasun or a Cummins or a Charit. Hey, okay, this guy's had a bad day. You only got to find 2 overs somewhere. If it's a slow pitch, you'll go to Cummins or a Charit. If it's a slightly pitch that you need a bit of pace, or you go to Dasun. So.
I want to talk about the batting.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I just want to get to this question first, Dom. Another one from Edith. Would love to hear what Prad has to say about the wickets being used for the Major League tournament. I don't know how much of that you've watched and what your thoughts. If you've got any thoughts on wickets?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I'll be very honest, Udit, and you guys as well, that I don't know too much on the Major League wickets, the pitches as much. But when I was with the team, at least, it was the case was that it was still very spin friendly, in the sense it was, you had the likes of bowlers who were or batters who would bowl and get wickets, and in the national team they wouldn't even be bowling in the nets, So I don't know how much that is still the case, and I hope it's not. However, and this is it, and it makes a great point. Why not try the Major League tournament? Let's just go for true wickets. Let's back up batters here and go true wickets. Let's see what happens. Let's force our bowlers to be creative on that.
Prad, to your point, sorry, Movin Subasinghe, who people have been mentioning, the batter, he took 6 for 19 in 10 overs today in the Major League Cricket. So there, that's your sense of what the I didn't even know he bowled, to be honest. But there you go.
Dom, can I bring up this? I'm going to bring up the second graph that you sent me.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll take the banner off. Sorry, there's a lot to go. It's like DJing this. I want to bring up a question that I got emailed in over the weekend from Neelan. He said, quick question from Prad. Thoughts on how we can sort of work on our dot ball percentage in middle overs with our batting. As you can see, our batting, we're in at number 9 in the world at the moment. We're not doing great in it. What do we need to change? And how do you think we need to kind of set up for it going into this World Cup?
Yeah, look, and this is it. So in the Asia Cup, we target this very specifically. We identified this dot ball problem back in 2020 when I was with the team. This was a problem, and we took about a year for us to get through it. And I felt we broke through in 2022, but it seemed to have creeped back in again. The biggest issue, actually, let me rephrase that. The biggest solution, I reckon, to this problem is how it worked for us previously with this exact same group of players was we just gave them a plan and clear roles. So, for example, we would break it into phases. So in overs 1 to 6, our target was ideally 60 plus for the loss of 1 to 2 wickets. If we lost 2 wickets, in say by the third or fourth over trying to go hard, we would then rebuild that target to lower, so say 40, depending on the opposition and the pitch and all that. And we tell that number 3 and number 4, okay, now your goal is just to get to the 6th over and get to X many runs, whatever it was. And then we'd say by the 10th over, here's your next target. Now, keeping in mind what I was telling you before, where we're aiming for 8 runs and over. So at all times, we're aiming for that 160 plus, give or take, depending on the ground average. And we then structure the innings for them, because at the 10th over, especially in ICC tournaments, you've got the strategic timer. So we'd give them a target up to the 10th over. If wickets fall, my job was consistently staying on top of that calculation, staying on top of that analysis, feeding that information to the coach. Hey, this is where we are. This is where we need to get to, so on. And then structuring that. That helped those guys on the ground when they're playing, in the sense that, okay, we're behind our goal where we need to be this. And then they'll force them to think. Whereas I think now it's a matter of they're just being said, okay, we're setting out, we want to get 170 or whatever that we're chasing, and they just go, hopefully Pathum and Kusal click, bang, they don't, they fall. Or what do? We just keep going hard, and that was what happened in the T20 series against Bangladesh. We just once those 2 wickets fell, there was no responsibility by the batters. I think nearly every wicket was us throwing it away.
That was what was so surprising, Prad, is that it seemed like the plan was patas, as we call them. Just go hard, score quickly, take the game away. And then it seemed like there was no idea of what to do after that. And that was it's so frustrating to see. So this brings up the question. So we have our 1-2 nailed down. 3-4, even in your time, was a question. What do you think?
Correct.
What do you think is the best approach for that 3-4 spot? Because it seems to be so crucial, and we know we have 5 locked down with Charith. He's back in form, and he's got that 6. But 3 and 4, what are your thoughts on that?
I think Kamindu fits in there for me at some spot. One of those 2, definitely. The other one really is going to come down to what we want to do. What is the management thinking on our plan? So, for example, if we think we need to go hard at the top, we want to play, let's call it the Sri Lankan brand of cricket that all these people talk about. Well, let's go hard at the top. Then I would play a more aggressive player at that 3. A strategy we used in 2022, which worked for us, and unfortunately for the World Cup, we went away from it. I actually can't remember why. I think maybe due to the Australian wickets, but we played DDS at 3 back then, since 2 years ago. And the reason we played that was because he has experience as an opener. So as soon as that first wicket falls, we were banking on his experience as an opener to go in and keep that flow going. And he did that. And then the number 4, 5, 6 had different roles. So it really comes down to what the coach and the management want to do with that role. If they want to play a more conservative game where they just want Pathum and Mendes to be attacking, and if a wicket falls, they want to be conservative, then you probably could play, maybe come into a 3, and then you're going to have to attack at some point. So you need an aggressive batter at maybe 4 or 5 with Charith.
Yeah, that's second, because I think you're right that now with 7 months left, we got to stick with Kamindu, because he's got so much talent. We can see we can see what he'll be, and I think investing in him is really good. And then I think the 4 is going to be the interesting question. What kind of approach do you want to have? Do you want to be aggressive? What does par look like on these wickets? The other option is potentially, and this, I'm curious your thought, playing Dunath in the top order, where you kind of, because if we're not getting many runs from that 3-4 spot, he can bat in the top order, and you get the extra spin option as needed.
Look, I'd be a little nervous about it. Like I said, it's throwing Dunath into a role he hasn't done before, leading up to a World Cup. So remember, he's going to be going to this role facing the best attacks in the world, right? So is it a possibility? Yes, it is. It's the same as throwing a new player into the squad now for the World Cup. You're throwing them in a situation. I think you just kind of got to try and find the solution within the players that we have within our pool that have that experience. I think it's way too late to be pushing, trying to push the boundaries a bit too far.
What about bringing in some legendary players? Some of
Oh,
the
no.
older players. Look, the only reason I talk about this, right,
Yeah.
is I'm outspoken about I can never predict what SLC might do, right? If we ended up going to Tokyo and playing T20s against against Japan next month, it really wouldn't surprise me, right? It's a very difficult situation to predict. Angelo Matthews, when he retired from Test cricket, said that he was available for T20 cricket, right? I absolutely, if someone was like, I don't gamble, but if someone was like, would you place a bet on Angelo being in the T20 squad? I was like, absolutely. At this point, I think it's quite likely the way that this team is being set up is that we could have a disaster going into in the warm-up games in all our matches between now and that World Cup. And as a kind of last-ditch effort to try and make something happen, he ends up getting a call-up. In the same way that I don't think it was in the plan for Chandy to play that third T20, and he ends up playing it, right? And you mentioned DDS earlier. I can see him being a player that's brought in last minute as well, right?
Yeah. Look, is there a possibility? Yes, I think there is a possibility, right? If there is, like you said, Mark, if we have that consistent run of failures and we're all out of options, there's a high chance that they may bring Angelo and give him that number 4 position. Push, come into the 3 and ask Angelo to bat 4. Look, whoever the player is, it's about having a clear idea of what is their role. Regardless, I think before we decide on the player, let's decide on what is our plan.
Yeah.
Because without our plan, we're not going to know the players are going to know what they're supposed to deliver. If we have a clear plan and we say, okay, this is going to be our game plan, we're going to want to go hard early, consolidate through to 10, build up, and we want the likes of Dustin and Wani coming in only at 15, 16. So we need to bat through 6 to 14. We need people who can rotate the strikes, people with low dot ball percentages, high, rates of 1s and 2s against spin, and be able to kind of rotate the strike regularly. We want a left-right hand combination because we want to tackle the leg spin threat. We want to tackle the left arm threat. So you'd come up with that plan first. You'd come up with then your strategy first, and then you decide, okay, which players fit in which roles.
I think that's absolutely right. Hopefully, they will think about that. Question about someone who's batted at 3 and has had a bit of a mixed record. Some great, some downside is KJP. What do you feel about his game at the moment? Because if he's in form, batting him at 3 or 4 should be a no-brainer. But he was woefully out of form, and part of that may be the pitches. Because when he was playing at the PSL, flat wickets. When he scored that 100 in New Zealand, it was a flat wicket. Maybe it's just without pace on the ball, he's not as effective.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest here, and I think there's room for KJP in the side, but I think once again we need to be very clear on what we're expecting from a player like KJP. KJP's at his best when he's at his destructive best. We can't have him going there and playing it around, looking for the 1s and 2s. So if you're going to play KJP, he's got to play 3, or he doesn't play at all. Simple. He plays 3, and then even if Patnam or Kosal get out, you just say, KJP, you go out there and you still play your game. You just back yourself, right? If 2 fall, well, you're number 4. That's who you're going to say, okay, your role is to get us to the 10th first, and then we'll reassess from there. So it's about, once again, identifying the roles, identifying the strategies, and then playing that game.
Prad, should we wrap it up there? Thank you for joining us. What a great comment.
We have to end on this comment.
Savina say what we all want to see. Angelo Matthews at the World Cup, in the World Cup squad, timing out Bangladesh captain in the T20 game to qualify for the semi-finals. Yeah, as I keep saying, I've just got this vision. Ahmedabad, AKD, Angelo, Chandy, Charith in a little golf buggy with Narendra Modi. Going to pick up the trophy. It's going to be glorious. The joy isn't the setback, isn't the loss to Bangladesh. It's the comeback. I think we all feel, and I know I'm the most enthusiastic Sri Lanka fan in the whole world, but I think we all feel like there is something good happening with the players that we've got, and it's just a case of
Correct.
making sure we can
Yep.
get it all right and get in the right position, right?
Yep.
There's a few questions come in, Prad, about people that will just end on. If you're a
Yep.
young cricket analyst, or if you want to get into it, you don't need to be young, you could be old and second or third career. What would your advice be to people trying to break into the industry?
Mate, great question, and I think I can only talk about the path that I took, and I was a slightly different path. My background's in finance. I don't I don't have any professional cricket background, and what I would recommend is to start working with cricket data, or any sport data now, whichever sport you want to specialize in, and start seeing how you can learn to work with that data. There's plenty of cricket data available all over the internet these days. Work with that. You'll start seeing things come up yourself, right? That will show you, and then you'll start fine-tuning on your own skill set as a result. You'll be like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I didn't know this exists. And I'll say, oh, what happens if I just add that database of information in there, add that piece of information, then you'll start working and you'll start upskill yourself. Once you do that, if you're in Sri Lanka, I would say the best thing to do is, look out for a role if at the Brain Center, if you can apply. They're usually on the lookout. If not, try and reach out to the clubs. Try and offer to work pro bono, for free, give your time free. A lot of the time, though, the biggest problem with Sri Lanka Cricket is their understanding of what an analyst is someone that sets up a camera and then just codes in an electronic scorecard. So that is the only thing that if you can convince them that, no, this is your value add, and if they're open enough to take it on, I think that's I would start there, build your experience there. The biggest thing with being an analyst is you got to learn how to communicate with the coaches, you got to learn how to communicate with the players, and you got to learn how to communicate with the management. So the best way to practice that is working with one of the club teams, and get your experience there.
Brilliant. Prad, thanks for joining. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and thanks for your comments. Sorry if we didn't get to your comments. I deliberately didn't pick anyone who was given their 11s because I just thought we'd be here all day if Prad had to mark your 11s out of 10. Please do follow us across all social media if you can. And we'll be back soon with more content in and around the Sri Lanka cricket side. Thanks a lot again. Bye.